So we got some jobs data out today, and according to Trump and his people, jobs are awesome. These are the headlines from the Financial Times. It says, U.S. economy far outstrips expectations to add 130,000 jobs in January. You also get this from the Wall Street Journal. Healthcare work propels U.S. to strongest job growth in more than a year. And you've been seeing this pattern quite a lot where healthcare is where all the jobs are. Now, Trump is going to tell you that everything's awesome and we need to cut rates. He says, great job numbers. Just in, great job numbers for far greater than expected, okay? The United States should be paying much less on its borrowing bonds. We are, again, the strongest country in the world and should therefore be paying the lowest interest rate by far. This would be an interest rate cost savings of at least $1 trillion per year. Balanced budget plus. Wow, the golden age of America is upon us, President DJT. So that's according to the Trump people. Just want you guys to see what they're saying.
I do feel like focusing on the revisions is important. And I don't want to take away from the fact that we beat expectations on the labor market for January, although I do think that it's important to recall that expectations were quite low. So the revisions that the BLS announced led to a total net job gain for last year of 181,000 jobs. That is a number that we used to see as a month-over-month gain on a pretty regular basis. And in fact, in the 10 years prior to last year, the average job gain over the year was about 1.9 million jobs a year. So what we've seen is this very anemic job growth. And, I was here last year during some of these prints, and it was already concerning what was happening with the unemployment rate, what was happening with the pace of hires and firing, and to then see that actually we were way off and the labor market was much softer than it appeared, I think is troubling, though it does kind of align with some of the anecdotes that we've been hearing from job seekers who say it's difficult to find a job. We're seeing those jobs numbers start to look a little bit more like that soft labor market that people were experiencing.
So basically, if you look at all of the jobs created last year, it's not good. And what they did is they revised the numbers down, right? So you estimate what you think jobs are. If you're not getting through all the data, then you finally collect everything and then revise it down. That was for last year. So this January data that we get, I think there's a very, very high chance is going to get downgraded the same way last year's jobs got downgraded. So I would take this January stuff with a grain of salt. Just be aware of that. Also, Trump's policies will add $1.4 trillion to the U.S. deficit over the next decade, right? So basically, we're going to be borrowing a bunch more to keep the government afloat. I'll read the details with you guys. It says the Congressional Budget Office on Wednesday raised its estimate of cumulative deficits to the end of 2035 by 6%. Again, this is all due to Trump stuff, compared with the previous forecast in January 2025. Following the implementation of the president's sweeping tax and spending bill and his immigration policies. It said the annual deficit, right? Annual deficit would rise from 1.9 trillion this year to 3.1 trillion by 2036, pushing federal debt levels beyond their Second World War record as soon as 2030. Here's a quote. There's no sugarcoating it. America's fiscal health is increasingly dire. This is coming from someone at a bipartisan policy center. Our debt is now 100% of GDP, and rather than pumping the brakes, we are accelerating.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does the Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year.
So according to Donald Trump and his people, ask about Epstein, just point to the stock market. Talk about the deficit, point to the stock market, and talk about unemployment and jobs, point to the stock market. You're all rich, guys. That's according to them. What's strange, though, is the way that they flex. This is Karen Levitt now. They seem to be flexing that we're firing federal employees. In President Trump's second term, 615,000 private sector jobs have been added, while federal employment has declined to its lowest level since 1966 and the lowest level in recorded history as a share of the total workforce, right? So for them, that's a flex. Like, hey, guys, we should celebrate that we're firing lots of people. Fantastic.
Labor force participation, the percentage of Americans that are looking for a job or have a job, it actually went to its highest level since 2001. So actually people are coming back off the sidelines into the labor market because they see the high wage growth, all the factory starts and so on. And so that's thing one.
Okay, so the first one there, I thought it was funny because he's trying to say, okay, all these job, growth and wages are awesome. I mean, that's just not what I'm hearing on the ground. I hear that jobs don't pay enough. And then the fact that people, want to come back to work, I think it's more like things are too expensive and I have to keep working. Also, we've seen data on this before to where people have multiple jobs. It's, that part keeps going up. Like the amount of people who have multiple jobs, it keeps going up. Okay, let's see what else you have to say about this.
Thing two is that because we've been reducing government workers, federal government workers so much, about 360,000 this year, that the jobs numbers actually kind of understate how wonderful the economy is doing because the government worker employment has been a drag. And to put it in perspective, that we've got the lowest government worker number since 1966 and the lowest share of government workers in the labor force in all of history. And so we have done something really, really dramatic.
And I find it strange. And I I'm not a Fox viewer, so I don't know what they're sitting at home. But like they're celebrating that we're laying off a lot of federal workers, and some of these jobs, like maybe you may watch this like, why are these people smiling and celebrating that we're firing people? I find that stuff so strange, and the way they try to make it sound is like, oh, those federal workers are just so bad people and they drag on the economy. Just fire everybody. That's why I always wonder, like, who are these Fox people that watch that? Do they sit around while their friends and family get fired and like, oh, fantastic, I'm happy everyone's fired? It's crap's weird. Let's see what more he has to say here.
Downsizing government. And what that does is it helps us be fiscally responsible and get interest rates lower. Now, the bottom line is that I've been saying on your show really since we started over a year ago, Stu, that I think that we're going to have a big positive supply shock and that we could have high growth and low inflation. Right now, we've got high growth and low inflation, and I think there's plenty of room for the Fed to cut rates because this theory about why you would lift rates right now because of high growth is an old-fashioned Phillips curve story that doesn't really apply when you get a big positive supply shock from AI or the internet. Alan Greenspan understood that back in the 90s, and let's hope that some people at the Fed understand it now.
And it's funny because if you guys remember, we were talking about Warsh, which is Trump's pick for Fed, was talking about the Greenspan stuff also. And long story short, oftentimes people talk about Greenspan as leading us up into the great financial crisis. So, from according to Hassett, because we have AI, it's just going to be the internet. We're all going to be awesome and you're all going to have jobs. And paid no attention to anyone who's a naysayer, I guess, because we're all awesome and cut rates, get the borrowing going. And just like the great financial crisis, I mean, things can really melt down. So that's the kind of stuff that they're saying over there. I'm going through all of it with you guys. This is Heather Long. She always has interesting takes on this stuff. January job surge, okay? The U.S. economy added 130,000 jobs in January, way above expectations. Over 60% of the job gains came from healthcare. I think that's a key part right there. November and December were revised slightly lower by a total of negative 17,000. We're talking about wages, 3.7 in the past year, above 2.7 inflation. Unemployment rate, 4.3 in January, lowest since August. But then there's the key, though, because I think things are going to get revised. 2025 was a hiring recession. After the big revisions, there are only 181,000 jobs added in 2025, the worst year for hiring outside of the recession since 2003. And then you got this, Fed's path to more rate cuts challenged by job surprise. So basically, I think the next Fed meeting is in March. Expect the Fed just to stand pat. If they are going to make any moves at the moment, market's thinking sometime in the summer. So we'll see. And take a look at this. Tariff revenue soars more than 300% as U.S. awaits Supreme Court decision. So basically, you're paying more, right? That's what that is. So, you have to understand that American importers and American consumers are paying this stuff. So this is an added weight onto consumer where people are struggling. And then in Trump's economy, they all want you in AI and crypto. Oh, and by the way, you may not get your crypto money back. Susquehanna-backed crypto lender Blockfields halts client withdrawals. And I think there's going to be a big fight over all this crypto scams when it's all said and done. The same way there's going to be a big fight to get tariff refunds when that's all said and done. So that's what's going on with the jobs. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on any of these things. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.